Bob, let's christen Don here with
Yes.
The news capsule.
We're gonna get the Wayback Machine, right? And I think what we'll do now is play the time capsule for December 1st, 1991. And then we'll get Don's reaction to what happened way back then. How about that? Want to go with this now?
Sounds good.
Let's do it.
Okay, and let's get on the phone right now with Donny Laible.
Hey, John, things seem like they're really gelling together for you.
They're gelling together.
Hey, how was the Garden last night?
Oh, it was a big crowd. It was the first time in I guess a number of years that it was a near capacity crowd there. They did not sell, I guess, the 400 section series of seats, which was the upper tier, but everything else was filled up, and it looked good. The air of electricity in the air for Hogan and Flair last night, but as they have done in California and several other cities, their first meetings, it was the same finish, and that is something that disappointed me. But I enjoyed the match. I was there sitting up close, and just to see these two go at it face to face, in person, you couldn't beat it. The excitement was great.
And speaking of excitement, people in the listening area will have a good treat this year. Just drive up the thruway to the Royal Rumble in January, because many things seem to be unfolding that could be the day perhaps another champion is crowned with the World Wrestling Federation.
Yeah, it'll be a lot of exciting things coming up in the next several months in wrestling, and of course the Royal Rumble could be a big event.
That's coming up in 7 weeks. That's at the Knickerbocker Arena, and anybody driving up there, exit 23 on the New York State Thruway. Can't miss it.
That's right. Are you going to be there, Donny?
Thinking about it. It's about 90 miles away from me, so as long as the weather's good, I'm sure there'll be quite a few people from this area.
Yeah, I understand that tickets, when they announced them, were moving rapidly for that event already. So what else is going on in the world of pro wrestling?
Well, I'll let you know.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Unless you've been in a coma or you've been stuck on a subway somewhere for the past couple of days, it's the World Wrestling Federation that's making news. They have a new champion. The Undertaker captured the belt from Hulk Hogan this past Wednesday in Detroit's Joe Louis Arena, topping off the Survivor Series. The end for Hogan came in the match when Ric Flair came to ringside and laid a folded-down metal chair on a canvas. The Undertaker administered his tombstone move to Hogan, whose head rammed into the chair, and the pin followed. A rematch is being advertised for this Tuesday evening. Also scheduled for the short-order pay-per-view from San Antonio, Texas, is a singles contest between Randy Savage and Jake Roberts. Now, the WWF is claiming Savage has been reinstated to participate on their shows. However, Savage all along has been seeing ring duty off and on since the summer. Bret Hart defends the Intercontinental title against the Barbarian, and the Repo Man joins in tag action with Ted DiBiase on the show. And also, New Jersey promoter Dennis Carluzzo has 2 shows with what promises to be interesting main events. First, on Friday, January 10th, in Drexel Hill, Pennsylvania, it's Bob Backlund taking on Jerry Lawler, and the following day in Clementon, New Jersey, Backlund squares off against Dick Murdoch. And finally, for you nostalgia buffs, 10 years ago today in Japan, Antonio Inoki scored a pinfall over Hulk Hogan. And 12 years ago was an interesting day in wrestling. First in Chicago, it was Nick Bockwinkel defeating Bobo Brazil. And on that same December 1st in Pueblo, Colorado, a rather different tag team took to the ring. They lost, the team of Haystacks Calhoun and J.J. Dillon. And just one final reminder, 8 weeks ago to the Pro Wrestling Spotlight Man of the Year banquet. Start thinking your selections right there. And capsule time, 12:19.
Wow.
Wow. The Knickerbocker Arena, Albany, New York.
Actually, that name now is up. They've had several names at that arena, and right now there is no name on there. They're looking for a sponsor.
Oh, really? I grew up in that region, and I attended my first live wrestling card at the Washington Avenue Armory.
I went there too. Ted Bailey was the promoter.
Ted Bailey, you beat me to the punch. Yeah, very good. And you remember those cards? Those cards were always a decent main event and 4 other matches with like Steve King versus Joe Turco, that type of stuff, right?
From what I gathered, Ted Bailey, who when I met him in 1977 was, older than Moses, but he was supposedly good friends with Vince McMahon's his dad. the older McMahon. And I can remember one time I went to my little Ring magazine press card that I got from Tom Burke. And I went to the arena. I love those old, Washington Avenue Armory. I love those old buildings that they used to have the shows in. And Arnold Skolin was there, and I showed him my press card. And I said I wanted to interview Stan Stasiak. I had my tape recorder, and he brought Stan Stasiak out. He sat down on a chair with me, and I just thought, wow, man, this is so cool. Stasiak was great, and the shows were great because it was a small, intimate place, held maybe like 3,000 people or whatever.
At best, yeah.
They used to run it every other week on a Friday night, and it was just wonderful.
Well, here's a little Bob Smith trivia. The main referee was a guy named Benny Morrell from Hudson, New York, who was my Little League umpire.
Huh.
Because he was part of the New York State Athletic Commission, and they had to be sanctioned as referees at that point in history.
Sure.
So he was also the in-ring, and he only about came up to my belt buckle. He was a short little guy. And he ended up usually about once a card getting knocked on his ass, but I think that was part of the fun of those shows. So
sure.
And what great memories those were for me.
Sure, me too. Listening over to what we're talking about, it was a great time because within a week or so, you had the MSG show, you had the Survivor Series, and then you had this Tuesday in Texas, and that was really. For me, that was it seemed like a gamble at the time to have two pay-per-views so close to one another. But I mean, they knew more than I was what they were doing. But some interesting things that when I look back at those cards, for instance, the Survivor Series, a number of those people, are no longer with us. I look over, I mean, great talents. Kurt Hennig, Davey Boy Smith, Kerry Von Erich, the Hawk and Animal, Hercules Hernandez, Mr. Fuji was on that show managing, and a couple other people. And we lost them at such, young age, like several other people, which just blows my mind. Also, we mentioned about the Rockers were starting to hint about breakup. The following day, December 2nd, they did a TV taping where the barbershop segment where they actually started to break up, and then they showed it about a month later. But when I think about the Survivor Series, it was always, you could tell what time of year it was. You had the Royal Rumble in January, you had WrestleMania in March, and then you had SummerSlam, and then of course Survivor Series. How great was it on Thanksgiving when they started the Survivor Series? I mean, I couldn't wait to go to my cable company to get my box and watch the show. It was exciting stuff, and that was only maybe 4 years later since it started or whatever. But that was really good.
It was a Thanksgiving Eve tradition, I think, for a while. The Survivor Series, and you look forward to that as you're cooking.
Oh,
if you
my
make
gosh.
it the turkey for the next day, and the Survivor Series is on.
And two other names I wanted to mention that I know I threw in there. Dennis Carluzzo, who was this guy, another person who was so nice to me and introduced me to people and whatnot. Dennis put on the craziest shows. He put on matches that wrestling fans wanted to see, but promoters, on your WCW or your WWF, they weren't going to do that for whatever, reasons they couldn't or whatnot. But he would bring in people from different areas and put on shows that were just off the wall. They were tremendous. Joel Goodhart did the same thing. He brought in people like the Sheik, the original Sheik, Abdullah the Butcher, or he'd bring in Eddie Gilbert to go against Cactus Jack. I mean, those were really exciting shows that you wanted to travel for. And my last comment on this capsule is that there was talk that Lex Luger at the time was unhappy with WCW because there was talking they were getting rid of managers, except Paul Lee was going to be there. And at the time, Lex had Harley Race going with him to the ring. And as a wrestling fan, I couldn't, Lex Luger, they were putting over, he was current, but man, I was so excited to see Harley Race because Harley represented the history of wrestling that I really, started with, that I respected. He was like Race was with Briscoe and Thez and Dory Funk Jr., those kind of people, Bob Backlund. And just to see someone like Harley Race coming to the ring, being associated with the company, for me, that was exciting. So just to hear his name again as I'm listening to the tape, the show in its entirety this past week, it just invigorated me even more about that time.
Well, we'll have a lot more of that to go over too. I mean, each and every week, we're going to relive the news capsule from 30 years ago. And of course, we'll call it the time capsule now because that's what it is. And Don, I'm sure that this ride is going to be a good one. It's going to be a fun one with you. And I'm so happy to have you here with the Pro Wrestling Spotlight podcast. And we look forward to next week's appearance.
I thank you very much. It's nice to see you again, Bob. I thought you were a classy writer, and you really give a good, smooth. You're a good yin to John's yang there. Really good.
Sweet and sour. Sweet and sour is a good combination, right?
There you go.
Yeah, thank you.
Donny Laible, we'll talk to you next week, and I just appreciate it. And it was a great first segment, and we'll bring you on next week. Thank you, Don.
Thank you.
Honest to goodness, he knows more about wrestling than most people will ever know. He really does. There's no question about it.
There's no question, and that's why I look forward to each and every week, because there are things that I forget, and I'm sure there are some things you forget. But Donny has
more every day. Yeah,
what a memory Don has, and so I think that's going to be a really cool addition to our show.